All right, let's talk about leadership. We're going to break down one of the oldest ideas out there, the trait approach. It's a concept that has fascinated people for well over a century. And honestly, it all boils down to one simple but really powerful question. And there it is. Is leadership something you're born with or something you can learn? This single question, well, that's the absolute foundation of trait theory. It was one of the very first attempts to systematically figure out what makes a leader, well, a leader. The core idea? That some people just have it. This quote from researchers Kirkpatrick and Locke just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that central belief, the idea that there are specific, innate qualities that literally separate leaders from everybody else. It's a really compelling idea, but as we're about to see, it's also a pretty controversial one. Okay, so let's dive into the history of this thing, because it's been on a real roller coaster ride. Seriously, there were times it was the biggest idea in leadership. Then it was almost completely thrown out, only to find a whole new life in the modern era. So this timeline really tells the whole dramatic story. It kicked off with these great man theories, focusing on historical giants. But then, in 1948, a researcher named Stogdill came along and threw a huge wrench in the works. He reviewed all the studies and basically said, hey, there's no single list of traits that works in every situation. He argued that context was king. And with that, the theory almost died. But then, get this, in 1974, Stogdill himself brings it back, arguing for a more balanced view, that yeah, traits matter, but so does the situation. And now, today, it's making a huge comeback as we try to understand charismatic and visionary leaders. So, after a whole century of back and forth, researchers did manage to pinpoint 5 traits that kept showing up again and again. These are really the heart of the trait approach. Let's break them down. First up, intelligence. Now, this might seem kind of obvious, but the research really does back it up. Effective leaders just tend to have higher intelligence than non-leaders. And we're not just talking about book smarts or IQ scores here. It's about being able to process tricky information, think things through, and get your ideas across clearly. And of course, a perfect example is Steve Jobs. His intelligence wasn't just academic, it was visionary. He had this incredible ability to see a future that no one else could, and then reason his way to building the products that would make it happen. He even said he felt like he had these products inside him that he just had to get out into the world. All right, next up, self-confidence. And this is so much more than just having a big ego. It's that deep down certainty in your own skills, in your own judgment. It's that belief that you can actually make a difference, which is what allows a leader to really influence other people. And sticking with Jobs, he was the poster child for this trait. You had engineers, critics, everyone telling him his ideas were totally impossible. But his self-confidence was so unshakable that he could push right through all that resistance and make his vision a reality. The third trait is determination. What we probably call grit today. It's that relentless drive. It's the initiative to start something and the persistence to see it through, no matter what obstacles get in your way. It's that simple refusal to give up. You can see this so clearly in someone like Dr. Paul Farmer. Think about this. While he was a student at Harvard Medical School, he was also flying back and forth to Haiti to build health clinics for the poor. The level of drive and persistence to do both of those things at once, that's the absolute essence of determination. Now, integrity. This one is absolutely critical. It's all about being honest and trustworthy. A leader with integrity is believable. They inspire confidence because people know they have a strong set of principles and will stick to them. Without trust, you've got nothing.
And what's so fascinating is how much this trait matters right now. Think about it. After so many corporate scandals and so much political mistrust, people are just crying out for leaders with genuine integrity. The demand for honesty and transparency is probably higher than it's ever been.
And the last of the big 5 is sociability. This is basically a leader's people skills. It's their ability to build good relationships, to be friendly and outgoing, but also diplomatic and sensitive to what other people need. It's really about creating a cooperative environment. A great example of this is a university president like Michael Hughes. He intentionally makes himself approachable, eating lunch with students, walking around campus, writing personal notes to his staff. That kind of sociability builds powerful cooperative bonds across the entire organization. Okay, so now let's connect the dots. Let's see how these 5 core traits feed into some of the more modern frameworks you've probably heard about. So researchers did what's called a meta-analysis, which is basically a study of a whole bunch of other studies. And they found a super strong connection between leadership and the big 5 personality factors you see here. And what was the #1 trait most strongly linked to leadership? extroversion, that sociable, assertive energy. And that makes sense, right? Leaders have to get out there and inspire people. Right behind that were conscientiousness, being organized and dependable, and openness, which is all about being creative and curious. And all of this leads us right to a huge concept in modern leadership: emotional intelligence, or EQ. At its core, EQ is about how our emotions and our thinking work together. It's the ability to recognize what you're feeling, what others are feeling, and then manage those emotions effectively. Now, here's the really hopeful part. While a lot of traits can feel kind of set in stone, emotional intelligence is something you can absolutely develop. Research shows that if you're intentional about it, if you ask for feedback, you set goals for yourself, and you actually take action, you can genuinely get better at it. So, after this whole journey, where do we land? What's the final verdict on the trait approach? Let's lay out the good and the bad.
Okay, let's weigh this out. On the plus side, the theory has some real strengths. For one, it's intuitively appealing. It just kind of fits our gut feeling that leaders are special. It's also backed by a ton of research, and it gives us some solid benchmarks to think about. But, and this is a big but, it has some major weaknesses. Researchers have never, ever agreed on one definitive list of traits. It also famously ignores how important the situation is. And finally, if these traits are mostly fixed, it's not super helpful for training and development, is it?
So, where does that leave us? Well, the real value of the trait approach today probably isn't as a rigid checklist to pick leaders. It's much better to think of it as a mirror. It's a fantastic tool for self-reflection that can help all of us get a better handle on our own personal strengths and our areas for growth. And that brings me to my final question for you. As you think about these core traits, intelligence, self-confidence, determination, integrity, and sociability, ask yourself, which of these resonate with you? Which ones do you want to consciously cultivate on your own leadership journey?